So over Labor Day weekend, I ended up visiting a body of water, and I figured it was a good time to try and fly my FT Otter, which I had finished building recently. The goal of this video is to provide sort of a guide or reference to people who are flying off water for the first time, and also to sort of serve as a review, I guess, of the plane, or just like a tips and tricks bit. One of the first things you should consider is where you're flying. You don't want to fly when there's a lot of boats around, because that's sort of stressful. I flew during early morning or in the evening. You don't want to have to fight the wind on the water because your plane will always turn into it. So it's best that you just not have to deal with it. And again, this is the FT Otter with the Power Pack C. I'm also running a 2253 cell. On this specific craft, I've actually modified to have flaps. You can see that when I add a bit of flaps, it gives it a bit of down elevator deflection. I just found that that's it, about 5 at half flaps and then 10 at full flaps % of down elevator is needed. So as far as your maiden flight goes, you're probably going to want to put around half to a full pack of battery through it, just taxiing on the water. You don't really have to keep full elevator back, but it is good practice just to keep the tail planted on the ground. You also want heaps of rudder throw for when you're on the water, whereas when you're in the air, you really have more than you need, so it might be worth it to either put a lot of expo on it. I had 25% on all my control surfaces, or just have like a rate switch so you can change the rate of the rudder. So to take off, basically just apply power until it accelerates, maybe give it a bit of back elevator, and what'll happen is it'll lift up out of the water and it'll get on plane, and then at that point the drag from the water becomes basically nothing, and it's very easy to lift off. Just give it a bit of throttle and then pull lightly back on the stick until it breaks the surface, and then you'll be flying. So now that you're flying, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to trim it with the wings level, get everything trimmed out. As far as landings go, this thing tends to glide really, really well. So what I found to do is best is just sort of bring it around, and then right before the next turn onto landing, just chop the throttle and bring it in with the elevator. And make sure to keep your wings level, because I found out the hard way, if you come down and one float is a little bit too low, it'll dig in and just flip your plane sideways, make it do like a ground loop-ish. As far as aerobatics go, I haven't tried a loop with it yet, although I do expect that it would perform it fairly well, although I would say an inverted loop would probably be easier because of the thrust line. It does rolls really, really well, although the roll rate is rather slow, again, because the ailerons aren't full length. I might put a flapper-on mix on that. And it also has a really, really good snap roll tendency, especially with all of the heaps of rudder throw that I have. So, if there's anything to take away from this video about the FT Otter, it's a really good flying airplane. I love it. It's fantastic. If you are flying a seaplane for the first time, just get the optimal conditions. Make sure that it's not too windy out, there's not any boats around, all that sort of stuff. And then just fly it as you would any other plane, really. As far as the flaps go, I think the modification was pretty successful. They allowed me to slow down a bit more quickly, I guess, so I don't have to glide as far. They're also fun just for takeoffs and stuff because they do provide that bit of extra lift. I'd recommend the hatch if you can. If you're starting out, it especially helps in like crashes and stuff. You don't get completely filled with water. But yeah, the water all just collects at the bottom below the battery tray. It's no big deal. And then you could just flip the plane upside down to relieve it of the water. So I guess that's sort of my review-ish. It's just like a thoughts about the FT Otter. It's a fantastic flying airplane. I definitely recommend it. It's great for just fun on the lake, I guess. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'll leave you guys with this awesome shot. I think it looks pretty cool.